So I'm going live on Instagram and on my Facebook business page with the second installment of Launch and Learn. So if you are just new to me or you haven't heard, every Thursday at 12 noon Eastern, I'll be going live on my Facebook business page and my Instagram with Launch and Learn, which we'll be talking about all things launching, from live launching, evergreen launching, lots of marketing tips, managing team through launches, all that kind of fun stuff. So today's title and topic is My Launch is Done, Now What? And the reason why I wanted to chat about this was actually I had a connection call with someone yesterday, and we were talking about a little piece of this, and it just got my brain sort of going. So I thought I'd share some things with you guys, because what I see a lot is that as a launch manager and launch strategist is that people are investing so much time, money, energy, team resources, emotion, heart into their launches, that so much so that by the time it's over, they're kind of like just relieved and like, oh, thank God that's over. Like, even if it went really well, right? It's just a lot of energy. And so one of the things I help coaches with is to actually create more space and energy in their launches without it feeling so overwhelming or so last minute or that kind of thing. And one of the key pieces that I see a lot, because people invest so much in the front end of the launch, is that sometimes they forget about what happens like post-launch. And there's a lot of really important activities that you can plan for when in your post-launch that some people miss. So just wanted to give kind of like a high-level overview of some of those things today. And if you have any questions as I'm going through about anything specific to certain of the high-level things I'm going over, feel free to drop them in the comments on Instagram or on my Facebook business page. And if I don't answer them as I'm going through, if I don't see them, I'll come back later and answer them. So, but if you're watching, welcome and thanks for watching. And if you're watching the replay, same, I'll come back and answer any questions. So, okay, so my launch is done. Now what? So there's three kind of pieces to this that I want to talk about today. And one of them is post-launch. What do you do internally yourself and your team once your program or group launches, and your kind of like the marketing part of and the enrollment part of the launch is over? The second is what do you do externally? And that's broken into 2 points. So obviously, as you go through a launch, there's two groups of people. There's people who do enroll and decide to invest in you, and there's people that don't. So I want to talk about both of those two things as well after we talk about what you can plan for internally post-launch. So the first thing I want to talk about is I actually did a post about this yesterday, and it was about one of the most crucial pieces of launches that people sometimes miss, and that is the debrief. And so a debrief of your launch should be scheduled pretty close to after your launch is finished. So once you get through the marketing and enrollment phase of your launch and your program actually launches and you close the doors, whatever that looks like for you. And, scheduling a debrief time to reflect on the launch so that you can capture the lessons that you learned. And sometimes people, might think, well, if I'm a solopreneur, if I'm a coach, I'm on my own, I don't have a team yet, you can still do a debrief. And especially if you have a team, schedule a debrief. Again, pretty soon after your launch closes so that things are fresh in people's mind. And the intention behind the debrief, typically you set it up as a group call, and you would invite everyone that's involved in the launch. So yourself, your team, if you have contractors, employees, agencies that you work with, either getting everyone on one call, or if it makes sense to have like breakout calls to discuss what you learned during the launch. So what worked, what didn't work. And while things are still fresh in everyone's mind, maybe brainstorm around what things you can improve for next time. And the biggest thing around a debrief it's not about, when you're talking about things that may not have worked as well as you wanted, it's not about like this didn't work and it's this person's fault, or our email open rates were not good and the copywriters at fault, or this marketing strategy didn't work, so the founder's at fault, right? It's really relying a lot on your tracking and your numbers, which is why tracking is so important. So relying on the data that creates information for you to see, okay, where did your enrollments come from? Like where did they come from? What emails worked really well? What if you're doing live webinars or workshops or challenges, which of those worked well? Which of those converted people from joining you for something free and then converting to a call or to an enrollment? And so looking at statistics and data from that perspective, but also the second part is looking at the experience, right? The experience that you had during the launch, the experience that your team had during the launch, and the feedback that you may have gotten from followers who were following through your launch. So, sometimes this is like a really kind of, basic example, but for instance, when you have, maybe if you're doing a launch and you have Facebook ads, right? A lot of times people will leave comments on your Facebook ads. And a lot of times when I start working with people don't even check those comments. And sometimes there's really good feedback in there. Sometimes there's negative people, which you can decide whether to leave it, to respond, to hide, to delete. But a lot of times people may say like, oh, hey, I jumped on your landing page and it was really slow and I couldn't sign up. Or, hey, I'd love to sign up for this, but XYZ. So that's just like, again, a really basic example of taking feedback of the experience of people that are following you and incorporating it into your learning as part of your debrief. So the key parts of the debrief, again, are what worked, what maybe didn't work as well as you wanted it to, and then brainstorming with your team, very open-minded, right, about what things you could improve for next time, specifically to hone in on your launch. And the reason why this is so important is because if you go through a launch and you don't debrief, even if you're on your own and you're taking some time for reflection, you're missing out on like really important lessons that can help you to make your launch more streamlined. It can help you to make it more profitable. It can help it to make it a better experience for your team, for you, as you start to figure out where those gaps are and where the opportunities are and tighten them up. And then the second thing, as far as internally outside of the debrief, is giving your team and yourself some space. So going from launch to launch to launch to launch is not really sustainable. For the clientele that I work with, who are like multiple six-figure to breaking seven figures, multiple seven figures, that have they have a proven offer, they have an audience, they have a team typically of anywhere from, I work with some small teams that are like one VA and the founder, and then I have teams that have 10 people, agencies, all that kind of stuff. So when you're going, one thing you have to consider is that, especially if you're working with contractors and agencies, you're not their only client, right? So they may have multiple people launching. So when you're going from like launch to launch to launch, it can really create some burnout and some overwhelm for your team. And then also for yourself, giving yourself time to have space to reflect and decompress and get space from like that high, sometimes what is like a high energy or high emotion, high paced pace during launches. So that's kind of what you want to plan for internally for your post launch, is a debrief and some space. Okay. Secondly, I wanted to talk about, so again, I mentioned earlier, there's two groups of people that are following you through your launch, right? There's the people that eventually enroll, and there's the people that don't. And if you're just joining and watching live, we're talking about my launch is done. Now what? Some key activities that you should and can plan for in your post-launch. So basically, there's two groups of people, right? There's people who have followed you through your launch and have enrolled, and there's people who have followed you through your launch and they have not enrolled. And first, we're going to talk about the people that don't enroll. So I heard a stat, I think it was last week, from one person, I guess who would be considered like a marketing influencer in the coaching space, and then from and then I saw a Facebook ad with the same statistic, and it was basically like, and forgive me, I can't remember if it's followers or like followers, which could be, website, social media, email, or it was just email subscribers. But the stat was like 50% of either followers or people that are on your email list will never buy from you. Okay. So if you think about that, there's these people that may have come in through your lead gen, they signed up for a free event or whatever list building activities you're doing to prepare for your launch, right? They're on your list, they go through this, they decide whatever you're enrolling into is not a fit for them. And then they're still on your list, right? They're now part of your email audience. So what I want to talk about is some of the activities you can plan for those. So there's 3 different things I want to talk about. There's one is the potential once you close doors to whatever your group, if it's a group program or a course is doing an alternate offer. So that's something a lot of people will do. They'll do like a more bite-sized offer for people that may not be ready to invest at a certain level, depending on what your launch was centered around, or so something that's typically a lower price point, a smaller commitment, maybe a shorter time commitment. It might even be like a digital product or a do-it-yourself or something like that, that people may offer as an alternate offer to people who don't step into the main offer of the launch. So that's one thing you could plan for. The second, and I think this is actually more important, is surveying your audience. So as people go through a launch with you, some of them may be new, some of them may have been on your list for a while, but surveying your audience post-launch is a great opportunity to do that and to ask them, hey, I saw you didn't enroll in my program. Can you tell me what was missing for you? This is really key to gathering important information that will inform your marketing going forward. Not just your marketing, really, it will inform your program too, right? Like what you're delivering. So if you know your enrollment, the whole funnel really. So if you know that if you survey people and they say, well, the investment was way out of way out of what I'd be willing to invest, or it really was a time commitment, like I don't want to commit to being in a 12-month program with someone, right? Or, whatever the case may be, there's lots of different reasons why people don't sign up, but surveying people and finding out why they didn't enroll can give you great information and research around how you may want to position things differently, whether it's on your front end marketing, whether it's in your funnel, in your sales enrollment conversations, in your offer, all of that. So in your CTAs, your delivery, all that kind of stuff. So that's a really great strategy to plan ahead for in your post-launch, is surveying the people that did not enroll into your program or course. The third and also equally important is to don't forget to nurture. Just because these people have gone through a launch with you, most people do not enjoy being sold to all the time. So going back to similar with you and your team, right? After your post-launch, creating space for your team to kind of decompress from the launch, your community may need the same thing, right? If you're going back to launch, sell, right? People may not be able to build a connection with you, right? They may not be able to feel like you want to build a relationship with them. They may just feel like you just want their money, right? So thinking about when the launch is over, how you can continue to support those people, even though they didn't enroll, because just because they didn't enroll doesn't mean that they're not going to enroll with you at some time in the future. And you have an opportunity here to continue this relationship and this connection with people, even though they didn't buy right now, right? So thinking about how you can support people after you've gone through the launch and your doors closed or whatever that looks like for you, and how can you continue to nurture and support those people even though they didn't enroll with you. And that does take some planning as well, right? You don't want to actually, you want to make sure that you're messaging is congruent, right? You're not jumping from launching something and then starting to, do content about something completely different, because people will be like confused. They might unsubscribe, which wouldn't be the worst thing. I actually sent an email today to my list about not being sensitive about your unsubscribe rate. So, so again, just considering that time period after the launch and how you can nurture and support people that didn't enroll. Okay, so we just talked about what you can do internally as a team in your post-launch, like what activities are important. We talked about what activities are important for people that have followed you through your launch and not enrolled. And this is, again, these are all important, but this is one of my favorite parts is what do you do? What activities should you plan for people that did enroll? And okay, so this may seem really obvious, right? Okay, well, delivery, right? People have enrolled, I'm going to deliver my stuff, right? And again, this is a gap that I see sometimes in launch plans, is that people put so much energy into the front end of the launch, the marketing, the lead gen, the acquisition, right? And quite often the delivery, even though they've mapped out all the things people are going to get, becomes like an afterthought, right? And by the time you get to when the program launches and you've been through this, expending all this energy on the live launch portion, the marketing portion, then you're like, sometimes people are like, like, then you have to go into the delivery phase. And so again, this is something that you want to plan ahead for, is the onboarding and the delivery of the program or course that people are enrolling into. And sometimes people might think like, oh, it's just a welcome email, right? It's just a welcome email, and these are all the things they're going to get, right? No, it's like you're creating an experience for people. And for some people, this may be their first experience working with you, right? And if I know, especially if you're launching like a high ticket program and someone's investing a lot of money and they've invested time in following you through the launch, and now they've made this big decision and they're investing in you, and now they have like, they submit their payment, right? And then all of a sudden their experience, right, goes like this. Not a good feeling. I've been through that. I signed up for a high ticket program before. Two of the high ticket programs that I signed up for, it did not have a great onboarding experience. One of them, I didn't receive anything for 2 weeks after I made my payment. And another one, I had I guess like a kerfuffle with one of the coaches in the program, who kind of like reprimanded me on a call. It was kind of bizarre. So the onboarding piece is really key to making sure that you are affirming people's decision to work with you and invest in you. And the onboarding starts, I mean, for me, like as soon as your enrollment person, whether that's you or you have a sales team, as soon as your enrollment person collects payment or collects a signature on that agreement, that's when the onboarding begins, right? Even before they're off the call with the enrollment person, right? Because they've made this commitment, and now it's like you have a responsibility to let them know what happens next and make sure that they're supported. So the onboarding piece starts at that point. And then yes, it is their welcome email. It is them getting access to all the things. But it isn't just like the program starts and their onboarding ends. There's a period of time where they're still getting acclimated to your program, to your team, to you, to your content, all of the promises that you deliver, right? And they're kind of trying to find their way. And even if you have everything super dialed in and super detailed and really supportive, like people, people have different experiences and different personalities. And sometimes the way that you may deliver something may not be received, the way you intended for certain people. So it's really crucial to make sure that you have your onboarding dialed in with automation to make it consistent, personal touches to make sure that if people need to give feedback or they're lost or they're confused, that they know where to go and how to get support. So that is, you don't want to get to that point, right, where you've spent all of these resources and I'm going to say acquiring leads. Like a lot of my clients are in spiritual coaching, or they're like super connected and conscious, conscious coaching. And they don't like to think of their clients in terms of like numbers or leads. I usually support a lot with the marketing side of things. So that's just the languaging that I use. So I'm just going to like say this in that way. But I don't want to take the humanity and the personness out of it. But, you've spent all of this energy acquiring leads, right? Making these connections, building this relationship with people through your launch. You've gone through, right? Getting them to commit to their vision, make an investment, and then to have a poor onboarding experience that diminishes, someone's, idea of you or reputation of you is like crushing. You don't want that. You don't want that for them, right? Because they made this big decision. You want them to be supported, and you don't want that for your business because it can cause issues with retention and attrition. So that is the final and third piece of the post-launch activities that you really get to plan ahead for is that right when that enrollment ends, and then the onboarding in through the start of the program. Okay. So I hope this was helpful. So today we talked, just to recap real quickly, we talked about kind of three main parts of your post-launch. When your launch ends, right, it's not necessarily over. There is your what you guys do internally as a team, if you have a team, or what you do yourself if you're a solopreneur, if you're a solo coach. What you do for activities that you plan for the people that followed you through your launch but didn't enroll, and then the what you plan for, activities you plan for people that did enroll. I don't have everything in place yet, but I am going to be doing a client onboarding training, because it's one of the biggest gaps I see, is that coaches don't have a intentional, well-planned, consistent client onboarding process in their business. And I think it's one of the most crucial parts of anyone's business, really, is your client onboarding. So I'm going to be doing a training about that in the next couple of weeks. Like I said, I don't have the page up or anything yet, but if you're watching this and you're interested in that, just drop a comment and I'll let you know when I have the details dialed in. But for now, thank you for watching. If you have any questions about anything I shared about post-launch activities, please drop a comment in Instagram in the comments or on my Facebook business page. And make sure to follow me so that on Thursdays, when I go live every week at 12 noon Eastern for Launch and Learn, that you can connect in and watch and get some value. And I hope you all have an awesome rest of your day.